Welcome back. Now, technological advancements and increased accessibility are one of the factors that contribute to the rapid growth of South Africa's online gambling market, which consists of a variety of games players can access with a click of a finger. However, increased consumer demand and rapid growth make it harder to regulate the online gambling market, leaving many players prone to fraud and unfair gaming practices. And join me now to unpack the conversation is Chief Compliance Officer at the National Gambling Board, Nkoatse Mashamaite. Thank you so much for your time, Nkoatse. Let's start off with the role of the National Gambling Board. What is it and what is it not, based on some common misconceptions?
Okay, the National Gambling Board is actually playing an oversight role on what the provincial gambling boards are doing to make sure that they align with the national norms that the National Gambling Act has set for them in terms of their licensing powers across all the provinces.
All right.
So our role is to go and make sure that the provinces align their national legislation. And of course, in cases where they are struggling, we come and assist them, especially in relation to enforcement against illegal gambling operations within their provinces.
Yeah, oversight. But would you say that sometimes there is friction in that the provinces aren't always uniform in their kind of regulations, and that's also where you come in?
Yeah, that is the challenge. We try also to work on harmonization of their work as well. But the challenge that we encounter is the fact that provinces have their independent legislative authority in terms of issuing licenses and compliance. And they set their own priorities in line with that according to the legislation. And as a result, we find the approach where they are not actually harmonizing to show that we are actually one country.
Yeah. Could that also maybe contribute to some of the barriers to entry? I mean, obviously, when we're talking about licensing and regulation, we have to talk about the barriers to entry. Would you say that that also affects that sort of landscape?
We do try to have an approach that will actually cater for everyone. It was actually envisaged like that. Our guiding principle for regulating gambling in the country, which is the findings of the Viehan Commission, that actually recommended that we should also look into empowering those who were historically disadvantaged to ensure that they participate. But this is a highly resource required in the industry that involved a lot of rich companies, and it's very difficult to balance that and ensure that the smaller players are participating. And we found that they can actually, in casinos, it's very difficult. We are already experiencing what we call oligopoly, in the sense that very few companies actually run that industry, and they are trying to entrench their monopoly by buying out others as well. We always read about the mergers and acquisitions that are taking place in that. And because of the high stakes involved, it's difficult to get the historically disadvantaged wholly participating in that, except that we do hold them accountable in terms of their BEE scores as well. So the other areas, because we regulate 4 sectors, it's betting, limited payout machines, casinos, and bingo games. And in the limited payout machine space, they do partner with local business people so that the machines are located there and there is element of profit sharing. And in betting as well, we still have the high participants being the richer ones as well. And it's also very difficult to just ensure that everybody get into that space.
It's actually quite interesting that you talk about the shape of the competitive landscape and really that it is highly concentrated where a lot of the big companies actually dominate in terms of owning the gambling businesses there. In terms of the other side, I mean, is there enough entrepreneurial appetite for businesses, and particularly businesses that are owned by historically disadvantaged groups, to actually participate in this industry?
Yeah, as I indicated, we actually have a lot of them in the limited payout machine space. They actually operate as site operators with root operators. Root operators are the ones who will own those machines, but they will put them in these venues and as a result get them into partnering. And we actually believe that as they grow, they will be able to stand on their own in the coming times and run these operations directly without the tutelage of the root operators.
Yeah.
But that has not yet taken place. We still have the root operators with the site operators in the limited payout machine landscape.
At this point,
so in all others, honestly, it is big players who are participating in the all other three sectors.
I'm actually wondering then, in terms of those challenges that they have in terms of participating and actually scaling their businesses within the industries. I mean, what are the biggest headwinds there? Is it just that because it's too much dominance of these big companies, or just some things that they actually need to expand on in terms of being attractive to the industry?
You mean the historically disadvantaged people getting attracted to participate? There is a need, there is a huge appetite for that, but honestly speaking, the licensing environment requires deposits of license fees and everything. For one to get in, you need to put in a deposit for the license fee so that they can do property checks on you and everything. And all of those are actually becoming very limiting to these young players who are trying to do. And I think provinces, they are trying to find ways of reducing those, but unfortunately we still see a lot of big players in this space than in the limited payout machine space.
All right. Well, there's a very big shift that is happening in the gambling industry. Of course, the emergence of online gaming. And I'm wondering, I mean, how has that shifted how you approach regulation at this point as the National Gambling Board?
The online space is permitted on the betting sector. Bookmakers who are licensed in that space are also allowed to operate physical sites, and also offer the operations through the online system. There is no restrictions for them, but we do have casinos which have been prevented to offer their offerings online. And if anyone is offering casino games, they are doing so illegally. And that is a matter for investigation and prosecution. So there is a huge participation, of course, on the online betting sector. And we also worried because we do see the features of online casinos, big games being offered, which is against the legislation, because a betting person will just place a bet and go home, wait for the results, and determine whether they've won or not. But now the games that are offered, they allow a person to just stay longer online, because you can press and start the game and operate. It is something that we are trying to engage with parts at provincial level to ensure that we are actually still sticking to the rules of the game as well. But yeah, it is something that we are still dealing with at the moment.
So would you say that, I mean, the impact of technology in this space, is making it harder for you to maybe combat illegal activities at this point?
It is difficult because most of these illegal online operators are licensed in foreign jurisdictions, most of them in Curacao and Isle of Man, Gibraltar, and they come here and offer their activities without getting a license in South Africa. And of course, there is still a restriction on those. And it is very difficult to actually deal with them. And we hope that one day we'll develop that capacity and collaboration with foreign licensing, with foreign enforcement agencies to deal with this and ensure that they do stop. We do write communications to their licensed jurisdiction, but we are not getting peace in terms of ensuring that their licensees respect our laws in South Africa.
Yeah. Nkoatse, the role of the National Gambling Board is to also monitor socioeconomic patterns of gambling activity in the country. Have any dynamics there stood out considering the precarious position of the economy and expanding inequality?
We do see that people are gambling a lot, and according to the assessment that we are making, they actually do use social grants also to gamble, and there is that concern, and the number of people who have problems is actually in the increase, especially after COVID. If you will see, even our new generation spiraled very much because of the activity being offered online. And you will see even the betting sector is dominating now, as opposed to pre-COVID, when casino actually used to lead the pack in terms of revenue generation. But there is higher rate of demand and participation from our public, especially the sports lovers who will want to bet on their soccer teams. But as a result of online offering, they tend to find other games that will actually draw them and make them stay there longer than they should.
And actually, just as we wrap up the conversation, I mean, you talk about how online gambling particularly is on the rise. I mean, to keep up with this trend of gambling being more normalized and more integrated into our lives, how frequent then is the review of regulatory guardrails in promoting responsible gambling?
We do have a lot of safeguards in the legislation because, first of all, a person can actually request to be excluded from gambling. And there's just been delays in finalizing those regulations to ensure that our people actually benefit this thing from this activity as well. So they can be able to exclude themselves and be blocked from participating in every licensed gambling site, of course. And there are, of course, restrictions that the people who are gambling must be of a particular age, must be 18 years or above. And we always request that responsible gambling messages must be on the display, on the websites, and even on the sites as they gamble as well. So we're trying to make sure that the people, when they gamble, they actually do so with a responsibility. We embark also on a month-to-month basis as the National Gambling Board on education and awareness drive, where we go out and educate our public about the safety of gambling and the fact that you need to gamble with a licensed site, because another deterrent in the legislation for people who are gambling is that if you gamble with an illegal operator, they might actually be confiscated and be brought to us, where it will actually be declared to be unlawful winnings, and the state, it will be paid over to the state as a forfeited amount.
Well, thank
So
you.
our people need to just know that, and we try to pass that message to them, and also to the media. We communicate that every time, that if you find that you're finding yourselves in a situation where you are feeling that you are addicted, please do get help. We have the South African Gambling Foundation, which is funded by the industry, licensed in the industry, to offer free counseling and treatment for problem gamblers.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate your time and giving us insight on that landscape, Nkoatse. That was Nkoatse Mashamaite, Chief Compliance Officer at the National Gambling Board.